Looking back, I don't think there was ever a more surreal evening in my life than that first dinner at Camp Half-Blood. I'd woken up in a world where monsters were real, gods existed, and apparently I was the son of one of them. My mom was gone, my old life had been ripped away, and now I was sitting at a camp for kids who claimed to be demigods. And yet, it felt oddly normal. Almost like everyone there had lived through the same madness and just accepted it. Chiron insisted I come along to dinner with the other campers that night. The sun was dipping low, the air golden and warm, crickets already tuning up in the grass. We made our way to the pavilion, this massive outdoor dining hall made of white marble columns and stone tables. It overlooked the ocean, and the breeze carried that salty tang you only get from the Long Island Sound. It smelled fresh, clean, and strangely comforting. The pavilion was arranged with 12 long tables, one for each Olympian god, Chiron explained. And here was the kicker. Every single kid sat at the table of their godly parent. Athena's kids at one table, Hermes' kids at another, and so on. You didn't just plop down next to your best buddy, the gods had dibs on seating arrangements. That sounded fine, until I realized I didn't know who my dad was. My table? Empty. Well, not empty exactly. It existed. There was a lonely stretch of marble with a worn bench reserved for undetermined campers. That's where I was sent. It was awkward, sitting alone like the new kid in school who doesn't know which lunch table to pick. Chiron, bless him, tried to soften it by explaining the ritual of dinner. Food didn't come from a buffet or a kitchen, it just appeared. Platters of roast beef, chicken, barbecue, salad, basically anything you wanted. The campers grabbed what they liked, and then, here was the strange part, everyone scraped a portion of their meal into the central fire pit. An offering to the gods, Chiron said. I didn't want to sound disrespectful, but scraping food into flames when you're starving doesn't feel natural. Still, I watched the others. They did it with reverence, bowing their heads, murmuring little prayers. When I tossed a piece of my cheeseburger into the fire, the flames flared brighter, the smoke curling upward, as if carried to Olympus itself. For just a second, I thought I smelled the sea breeze stronger than before, almost like the ocean itself was saying, "Thank you." That thought gave me chills. Around me, the pavilion buzzed with conversation. Kids talked about capture the flag games, their training schedules, and which monsters they'd fought. Like this was all normal summer camp stuff, no big deal. Except instead of gossiping about counselors or cafeteria food, they compared harpy attacks and sword techniques. At one point, Annabeth slipped over to my side, balancing her plate. She gave me that look, the one she was so good at, half curiosity, half exasperation, like she already knew more about me than I did. "You're pretty much hopeless," she said, sitting across from me. "Gee, thanks," I muttered. She shrugged. "Don't take it personally. You'll either figure out who you are soon, or you'll get yourself killed. One or the other." Comforting, right? That's Annabeth for you. But she also explained more about the gods, how they still existed, still ruled from Mount Olympus, which, by the way, wasn't in Greece anymore. Nope. Olympus had shifted over the centuries to wherever Western civilization was strongest. Right now, that meant New York City, Manhattan, 600th floor of the Empire State Building, apparently. I laughed when she first told me, but she wasn't joking. The gods weren't just myths. They were alive, active, and apparently still very meddlesome parents. Dinner wrapped up with dessert. Plates of strawberries, chocolate, anything you wanted. But just like before, a portion went into the fire. I couldn't help wondering if the gods actually sat up there on Olympus waiting for burnt food like it was some kind of divine Uber Eats delivery. After the offerings were made, Chiron rose from his place at the head table and announced the evening's activities. Capture the flag, sword training, archery, the usual summer camp lineup, with a heavy side of "try not to die." As everyone dispersed, I lingered by the fire pit, staring into the flames. I still didn't know who my father was. I didn't know if I belonged here or anywhere. But as the smoke curled upward, carrying my offering, I swear I felt a presence. Something vast, something old, something that smelled like the sea. It was watching me. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe I wasn't so alone after all. You know how some people talk about summer camp as the time of their lives? They remember s'mores, hikes, campfires, and songs under the stars. Yeah, well, my time at Camp Half-Blood was nothing like that. Unless you count the part where the hikes involved being chased by monsters, and the campfire songs were about gods who might strike you with lightning if you got the lyrics wrong. By the time my first week rolled around, I'd learned one thing. Camp Half-Blood wasn't a summer camp at all. It was a training ground. Every activity, every class, every meal, it all circled back to one goal: survival. Because out there in the world, monsters weren't bedtime stories. They were waiting, hunting, and sooner or later, they'd come for us. That week, my schedule was a nightmare designed by gym teachers who hated kids. Archery in the morning, canoeing on the lake, ancient Greek lessons, wrestling practice, running laps around the climbing wall that, by the way, spewed lava if you slipped. The whole time, I felt like everyone else was miles ahead of me. Kids who looked my age could already shoot 10 bullseyes in a row. Others could duel with bronze swords like they'd been born with blades in their hands. Meanwhile, I was just trying not to slice off my own ear. Annabeth was my unofficial tour guide and occasional tormentor. She'd correct me whenever I held a sword wrong, or when I mispronounced a word in ancient Greek, or basically whenever I breathed. "You're untrained," she said one afternoon, as I flailed through yet another sparring match and ended up flat on my back. She stood over me, blonde hair pulled back, eyes sharp as daggers. "You're untrained, but you've got potential, if you don't die first." "Great pep talk," I groaned, wiping sweat off my face. "Honesty is the best strategy." Yeah, Annabeth didn't sugarcoat things. The only place I didn't feel like a total disaster was in canoeing. Every time I touched the paddle, every time my boat hit the water, it was like the lake obeyed me. The canoe cut faster, smoother, easier than anyone else's. Other campers struggled against the current, but I glided over it like the water was carrying me along. Some kids stared, whispering. Annabeth noticed too, I could tell, but she never said anything. Not yet. The big announcement. At the end of the week, Chiron gathered us in the pavilion, leaning on his bow like a walking stick. His voice carried across the marble tables with the kind of authority only a centuries-old centaur could have. "Tonight," he said, "we play Capture the Flag." The place erupted in cheers. You'd think he had announced free pizza for life. I'd played Capture the Flag before at school. It was fun. You ran around, stole a bandana, and tried not to trip over your shoelaces. But the way the campers cheered, this was different. Serious. Chiron went on to explain the rules, though I barely heard him over the buzz of excitement. Weapons allowed. Real swords. Real shields. No killing, obviously, but accidents happen. Everyone laughed at that except me. I suddenly had a bad feeling about the evening. Annabeth found me later, slipping a bronze helmet into my hands. "You'll be on my team. Don't screw up." That was the extent of my pep talk. She tossed me a shield, too, which clanged against my arm like I'd just strapped on a manhole cover. I could barely lift it. Annabeth?" I asked. "Do you maybe have one in, I don't know, Percy size?" She just smirked. "You'll grow into it." Sure, assuming I'd survived long enough to grow at all. Into the woods. That night, we assembled at the edge of the forest, the camp's magical borders glowing faintly in the distance. Torches flickered, casting shadows on kids in full armor. Helmets gleamed, spears and swords clanged as campers tested their gear. It wasn't a game. It looked like an army preparing for battle. The teams divided: Athena, Hermes, and Apollo on one side, Ares, Hephaestus, and Demeter on the other. I ended up with Athena's team since Annabeth had claimed me. She strode in front like a commander, her gray eyes scanning the trees, already strategizing. She pulled us into a huddle. "The creek marks the boundary. Our flag is blue, theirs is red. Guards will stay on defense. Percy?" "Yeah?" "You're with me." I blinked. "Wait, me? On offense?" "You're quick," she said matter-of-factly. "And you'll learn." "But I can't fight. I can barely swing a sword without hitting myself." "That's why you'll stay with me. Consider this training." Her smirk returned. "Besides, you want to prove yourself, don't you?" I couldn't argue. The conch horn blew. The game began. The conch horn's echo faded, swallowed by the trees. Suddenly, the entire forest seemed alive, rustling leaves, pounding footsteps, the clank of metal as campers charged into the game. It wasn't a playground anymore. It was war. I gripped my too big shield and followed Annabeth. The forest was thick, the air damp and earthy. Moonlight filtered through the branches, casting jagged shadows. My helmet felt too heavy, my sword clumsy in my hand. But Annabeth moved like she'd done this her whole life, which, in a way, she had. "Stay close," she ordered. I stayed close. We crept along the creek, the boundary line between the two territories. The sound of rushing water was oddly comforting, like a reminder that at least something in this insane world still made sense. But the rest, not so much. Somewhere deeper in the woods, shouts broke out, steel clashing, voices yelling war cries. Every sound made me jump. My instincts screamed to run back to the cabins and hide under the covers. But Annabeth pressed forward, calm and sharp-eyed, like this was just another math problem to solve. After a while, we came across two campers in Apollo armor lying unconscious in the grass, their shields dented, helmets cracked. Annabeth crouched, studied them, then shook her head. "Ares kids," she muttered. "They've pushed through." She turned to me. "Percy, remember, capture the flag isn't just about strength, it's strategy. Look for the weak points. The creek is ours. Hold it." Before I could ask what she meant, she slipped away into the trees, disappearing like smoke. That was Annabeth, always 3 steps ahead, leaving you to catch up. I stood there awkwardly, clutching my shield until the underbrush exploded. 3 kids from the Ares cabin burst out, armor clanking, eyes lit up with bloodlust, and leading them, Clarice, the girl who'd already tried to dunk my head in the camp toilets my first day. Great. "Well, well," Clarice sneered, swinging her spear. "Time to teach you a lesson." The others flanked me, boxing me in. My stomach dropped. I raised my shield, sweat dripping into my eyes. Clarice didn't waste time. She lunged, her spear crackling with electricity, because of course it was electric. That's what you get when your dad is the god of war. The first strike rattled my shield so hard I thought my arm would break. Sparks danced, burning my skin. I staggered back, barely blocking the next blow. My sword felt like a toy compared to her weapon. They pressed me toward the creek. My heels slipped on wet grass. The shield grew heavier with every strike. One of her teammates slammed me from the side, nearly knocking me down. "Oh, come on, newbie," Clarice taunted. "Fight back." I tried. I swung my sword wildly. She parried it like I was a 5-year-old. The Ares kids laughed. My chest burned with anger, embarrassment, and fear. Then Clarice jabbed her spear forward and the tip grazed my arm. Pain shot through me like a bolt of lightning. I cried out, stumbling back into the creek. Cold water splashed up my legs. For a split second, I expected to fall flat on my back, humiliated. Instead, everything changed. The moment my feet hit the creek, a surge of energy pulsed through me. It was like I'd just downed 3 energy drinks and taken a long nap at the same time. My muscles loosened, my heartbeat steadied. The sting of the electric spear faded, replaced with strength that wasn't mine alone. The creek wasn't just water, it was alive, and it wanted to help me. Clarice's grin faltered. "What the—" I straightened, my shield suddenly light as air. My sword felt natural in my hand, like it belonged there. When she charged again, I met her strike head-on. Sparks flew, but this time I held firm. The impact didn't knock me back, it pushed her. Her eyes widened. I pressed forward, parrying blow after blow. My shield slammed into her chest, sending her stumbling. She snarled, swinging harder, but I was faster now, stronger. The creek flowed around me, inside me, lifting me up. I spun, caught her spear on my sword, and shoved. She went sprawling into the mud. The other Ares kids hesitated, suddenly unsure. "Want to keep going?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. They didn't. Clarice scrambled up, dripping, glaring daggers at me, but she knew it too. I'd beaten her. Me, the hopeless newbie. Before she could lunge again, a horn echoed across the woods, loud, final. The signal. Campers cheered in the distance. Flags waved. Annabeth emerged from the trees, our team's blue flag in her hands, her face glowing with triumph. "We won!" she announced, her voice carrying. I just stood there, stunned, still ankle-deep in the creek, water swirling around me like it was part of me. And everyone else noticed, too. The whispers spread fast. The new kid, the water, the way he fought. Chiron arrived, his expression unreadable. Campers gathered around, some pointing, some murmuring. And above it all, the fire from the pavilion roared higher, brighter, as if the gods themselves were watching. For the first time, I realized the truth. The water hadn't just helped me, it had claimed me. And suddenly, I had the sinking feeling I knew exactly who my father was.